This is Do It for a Living, your source for inside information on the future of automotive performance.
There are haters within your industry. There are going to be people that will try and take shots every chance they get. Now I look at it and I just go, I can't fix them. I can't fix their mindset and their approach, but I can certainly fix mine.
What's holding you back from starting or growing your business into what it can be? Well, if you're listening to this, it's not a lack of information. What you're about to hear is all you need to get motivated and start making waves. Do It for a Living podcast details the journey of today's true players in their own words. Find out how they broke out so you can too. The time is now. The time is always now.
Welcome back to another episode of Do It for a Living. I'm Kevin Dubois. This week we've got Trevor Doelling of Texas Speed and Performance. He is the co-owner of the company, and if you're not familiar with them, they do a lot of domestic stuff, I think specifically in the LS world. I'm an import guy, but Texas Speed is obviously well known, especially here in Texas, but I think nationwide. I was just in a World Cup finals last weekend, and there was one of their cars up there. So, Trevor, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How about yourself?
I'm doing really good. Today has been better than yesterday when it was all rainy.
That's always a good thing, yeah.
Yep. So, Trevor, why don't you go ahead and get started and kind of tell us about yourself. Give us your history and your background, like what got you involved in cars, and kind of take us up to when you got started with Texas Speed.
Sure. Well, I've always blamed my dad for getting into cars. I remember when I was 14 years old, he was always into some of the older muscle cars. He had a 69 Roadrunner and a 72 Camaro Z28. And so I remember as a kid, cruising around in those cars and even learning how to drive a manual for the first time in his Z28. And so that was the initial car bug, so to speak, where I was really bit by it. And from that point forward, just obsessed, with everything that has an engine and wheels. From that point, it was quickly into, as soon as I had a driver's license, I was at the drag strip every weekend, and it was, the going joke was if it ran, I tried to race it. So it didn't matter how slow it was and everything, when you start out drag racing, usually
it's pretty slow to start, right?
Oh, it's terrible. Yeah. My first car I ever drag raced was a 92 Chevy Beretta that ran 1790s. Ooh. So, you could eat lunch in the time it took to make a pass, but, I was hooked regardless. So, that's, through the teenage years, I was fortunate enough. My dad was, of course, obviously he was into cars since he got me into it. So, we ended up with a 69 Chevelle that, we put together, and, I raced it for a little bit, and, took me into the very low 14s, and then we got a little more serious and ended up with a 67 Chevy 2, and it had a big block, and it would run high 10. So okay. So yeah, it was, the bug progressed pretty fast. It was one of those, again, and any car guy that they understand, because mm-hmm. we all, no matter what kind of cars or what kind of auto sports we're into, it all starts the same. You're bit by the bug, and you can't get enough of it from that point. So, I'm a drag racer by nature, or I guess at least starting out. So when the LS platform came about, it was only natural for me to want to take a perfectly good car and rip it apart and try and make it faster. And so everything I was doing, with anything up to that point, it was all absolute drag race oriented. I wanted it faster at the drag strip. So, so it was one of those where, when the LS1 first came out, it came out in the 97 Corvette. And then of course it carried over into the Camaros and Firebirds in 98. And so I ended up turned 21 in 1998. So insurance went down. I could get a V8. And so that's the first thing I bought. I went and bought a Trans Am. And that's actually how I ended up meeting my business partner, Jason. And this will kind of date us back to the 20-year time period. But I met him through AOL. When AOL was about the only way you got on the internet Once I got my Trans Am, I did a search. I was in Lubbock at the time going to Texas Tech University. And so I did a search for anybody else that might have a 98 Trans Am. And he came up. He was in a nearby town.
Can you say his name again? It kind of broke up when you said it.
Oh, sure. It's Jason Mangum.
Okay.
And so, yeah, when once I had my car, I was looking for anyone else that had one and was wanting to go crazy with it as well. So, so we met up, and from that point forward, it was trying to outrun each other all the time. Every mod we did, we always worked together on trying stuff, but when we went to the drag strip, it was always who can outrun who. I had an automatic, he had a manual, and so there was always a little bit of rivalry there. So. So with that, things progressed before we know it. We had we were building, first installing different cams and porting cylinder heads, that sort of stuff. And this was, you have to remember, this was in the infancy of the LS, so there were no tuning solutions. You're having to kind of crutch this stuff along. So back in the day, you wanted a higher idle, and you're just turning up the set screw on the throttle body, and using a hypertech and that kind of stuff to try and change some of the basic parameters with like fueling or any of that. And there were, lots of other things that were kind of plug and play, Band-Aid, so to speak. Like a mass airflow translator is what it was called, where you could actually richen up or lean it out a little bit through the mass airflow sensor. So there were no, it was not a time where you bust out your laptop and pull your HP tuners or whatever it may be and just go tune it. So there were lots of challenges, in trying to make all of that stuff work, but you didn't see a lot of the crazy camshafts and the real aggressive setups until after there were some tuning options. But but we couldn't leave well enough alone. So before I knew it, I was building one of the very first 383 LS1s that were out there. And of course, that didn't leave much room as far as my business partner went. So he ended up with a re-sleeve motor, a 422, I believe, from Motorsport Technologies out of Houston that was pretty famous for the re-sleeve motors at the time. So, it was always just trying to outdo each other, outrun each other. And we have these cars that are a year and a half old, and they're just ripped apart pretty regularly on trying to just go have fun with them.
You said you were porting your own heads. Did you do your own heads, or were you sending them off to do that?
No, at the time we were sending them off. So we were just kind of making use of the companies that were out. It was pretty limited. There was a company way back in the day out of Florida. It was CNC Motorsports. They did some cylinder heads, and then my business partner Jason, everything he did came from Motorsport Technology. So his heads cam package, that was all back in the day of hand porting. So they, his stuff was hand ported heads, and then later, moving it over to the stroker setup. But it was really fun back then because it was the infancy of the LS platform. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of the pioneer days is what a lot of us refer to them as, because there's so much that was just not tried. You were just, kind of flying by the seat of your pants on what worked and what didn't. So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. In the midst of it all, both my business partner and I were both going to school at the time. So, I graduated from Texas Tech in 2000 and ended up moving to Dallas, Fort Worth for 2.5 years, trying to find a job. And it was after I graduated and moved away that we even really kicked around the idea of wanting to maybe start a business. He was still, because our original location was in Lubbock, actually just outside of Lubbock in West Texas. So it was one of those things that we always kicked the idea around, saying, man, we should really start a shop. This would be great. And in the meantime, he had met a guy, Joseph Potak. He was our original and only installer we ever had, and actually still works for us now doing research and development for us. Okay. He had moved to the Lubbock area, and so Jason got to know him, and so Joseph was doing a bunch of side work on nights and weekends on LS cars, and so things just kept kind of progressing, and we were neck deep into modding our own cars and really pushing it all. So, we finally just got to a point in 2002. I was working for a performance shop in the Dallas-Fort Worth area at the time. And, there's only so long you can talk about something before you finally just say you either need to actually do it or quit talking about it. And
Right.
so that's kind of where we both kind of hit that point at the same time and just said, we either need to try this or just move on and just kind of put it to bed. So, we said, okay, well, at the time I was 25, Jason was 23. So we were pretty young. And so obviously the biggest hurdle was, even trying to get financing,
Yeah.
at that age for a business is pretty hard. So, for us, that was the biggest hurdle. Once we worked out the financial side of things and said, okay, well, I think we're going to do this. It was our first business. And ignorance truly is bliss, because you don't know what you don't know, which sounds a little cliche, but it's very true, because you have no idea what you're going into, what you're getting into, and all of the different things that as a business owner that you're going to deal with. You don't think of, well, how am I going to manage employees and all of the hurdles that come with owning a business. So, so it was very early. We started, we formed, and we actually just celebrated our 15th year in business. So we
Awesome.
we
Well,
were
congrats
formed.
on that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been a crazy ride. We started in the end of October 2002, and really, so I moved back to Lubbock in 2003 from the Dallas area, and so that's when we started, trying to get a facility together, and so we did. We built a 5,000 square foot shop, and essentially held our breath and waited to see what happened, and if we were going to end up having to find new day jobs in a year from that point, or just you fly by the seat of your pants. So, it's as any business owner that has done it. Especially when it's something that's so passion driven, and typically when you start a business, most of the time it usually is something that you're passionate about.
What was your degree in?
My degree was in business economics.
Okay, so it was at least something relatable to or applicable to the business, or did you find that not useful at all?
Over the years, I have definitely found it to be useful in some aspects. The irony is, I absolutely hated accounting in college, and the first things that I ended up doing was accounting and bookkeeping when we started, and I was not good at it. It was one of those, early on you wear many hats, and so at any point in time, you're the bookkeeper, you're the salesman and the sales manager, you're doing shipping, you're all of these different aspects. So so you're wearing lots of hats and spread pretty thin.
Yeah.
So it was interesting for sure. But early on with both of us, Jason and I both we were huge fans of going to the drag strip. And that's when we started, that was a big thing of we were always testing what we were selling because we were at the drag strip all of the time.
Right.
So it was a lot of fun at that point, because again, it was still a lot of uncharted territory as camshafts got bigger and tuning options did become available. Just lots and lots of fun just because of that, because it's very different from now. Now, for instance, the C7 Corvette, when it was first released, when that car was finally released, well, we already had an LT1 6.2 liter crate motor, actually had two of them. And so we already had them on the engine dyno and, developing camshafts and cylinder heads, all of that stuff. So it's very different because now it's almost instantaneous. A new platform comes out and it takes no time, and everyone's got packages. But, and the technology's there, to be able to tune them early on. And that it was just very different. 20 years ago, it was very slow to evolve. So it wasn't until 2003, 2004 that you really started seeing guys run these much bigger cams versus what people were originally doing with the LS1. So it was a lot of fun, but of course a lot of work. I always tell people, the first 3 years of the business, it's illegal to pay someone what we made because you work such long hours.
Yep.
I mean, it truly. I mean, I always judged how long the day was based off of reruns of Friends at night. They came on at 11 p.m. And if I was home in bed and caught a rerun of Friends, I knew that it was a good day because I was home before midnight, because we just had so many nights, working on cars. And but again, because it was passion driven, it was fun. As
Yeah.
soon as we got to turn the phones off for the day and we got to start playing with our own stuff and working on it, getting ready to go to the track, and that was a lot of fun.
And that's really how you're able to work the long hours, right? I mean, you like doing it. If you're working long hours for something you didn't enjoy, it doesn't last long.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. It was 100% passion driven. We couldn't get enough of it. It's one of those where you're so excited to start a business, and we go, oh man, we're starting a performance shop. And so again, ignorance is bliss. You're just so excited about it, and you learn so much the hard way, because you learn stuff as it's being thrown at you. So it's 100%. You're passionate about it and you enjoy it. So yeah, a lot easier when you're enjoying it. Don't get me wrong, the long hours for sure. I mean, when you're working 16, 18-hour days all day, every day, it can take its toll pretty fast. But good thing is that we were definitely young and could handle all of that, where it wasn't that big of a deal. So a lot easier to overcome.
Walk me through kind of like the transition from like you said, you were in Dallas and then you moved back to Lubbock area, wherever you're at. You quit a full-time job to do this, and you obviously had to talk to bank or get financing for this. What was your how did you transition out of working for somebody else to doing it yourself? Like, did you have money stashed aside to do this, or was it, like just going out on a limb and, let's hope this works?
Oh, 100% going out on a limb, hoping it works. For the first 9 months of the business, Jason nor I made a paycheck at all from the business. So Jason was still working part-time at another company while he was still in school at the time when we actually started the business. And so he was working part-time at another place, and then, trying to be at the shop as much as he can. We had one employee at the time that was, helping with sales and shipping, all of that stuff. So it was, for me, I tell people that all the time, because there's just so much risk involved when you, especially early on, and there's not much. At that point, I did not have a nest egg to fall back on.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, by the time the place got up and rolling, I had lots of credit card debt because that's how I was living at the time,
Mm-hmm.
So it was absolutely, we held our breath and waited to see what happened. It's just one of those things, Jason and I never really discussed what if this fails.
Okay.
I think part of that was ignorance. But I think also part of that was the reason for our success, because it was never a consideration.
Okay.
We just looked at it as this has to work.
Mm-hmm.
That's just all. I just remember both of us, saying that many times. I mean, this just has to work. And so it was a good time because there were lots of opportunities in the market as well. At the time we were originally famous. We had an induction lid for the fourth gen Camaros and Firebirds. And that was really our first thing, and kind of claim to fame, quote unquote, was that induction lid. So that kind of led into other things, where we got into playing with different camshafts and really kind of pushing the envelope
Mm-hmm.
there. And so it snowballed over time.
Okay.
When we started, it was nothing but parts sales. We were not
parts, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, other people's parts. It was there was zero manufacturing in house. It was just a retail facility.
Were you installing them as well?
We were, at the time when we started. We were installing as well.
Okay.
And that was a decent portion of our business when we first started. Was the installation, because that was one of the things at the time. There was not a lot as far as performance shops in West Texas and Lubbock specifically. So there were some opportunities there for a while. As we grew there at the time, and even now, but there's only so many people you can really sell to locally that are that passionate and want to spend the money and actually let you install all of the stuff. So as we grew, we ended up, most of the cars we actually worked on were usually from somewhere further off, either across the state or across the country, where someone would ship a vehicle to us. So, but as we grew, we only had the one install tech. We never tried to push that side. We knew from day one that we were going to really push the part side of the business.
Okay.
Had no idea that what it would turn into, or that we could ever be at the point like we are today. So it's been a very crazy ride. We actually quit doing installations back in 2012. It was one of those things at the time that our install tech was looking to make a change, and so at that point we just said, you know what, this is a perfect opportunity to just shut down that part of the business. It was one of those that, because it wasn't a major part of the business as it grew, it became more headache.
The 80-20 rule, right? 20% of your revenue for 80% of your problems.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And it's a hard thing to deal with, because we ended up, when we shut down the installation side of things, it was we didn't have, hey, I want some headers installed, or we didn't have I want even a camshaft installed. The vast majority of them is, here's my bone stock car, I want a stroker, I want a supercharger, fuel system. They want one of everything. And so what became the easier jobs that you could turn out in 4 or 5 days now became jobs that were a month plus, usually waiting on parts, waiting for the engine to be completed, just all of these things, that much bigger jobs. So so it really didn't hurt anyone's feelings when at least from the employee side or owner side, when we said, we're not going to do installs anymore. It's just not a big enough side of the business to keep dealing with. So
I think a lot of our listeners would love to do what you did.
Yeah, I've had that a lot. I've had a lot of people say that I would love to not have to work on the cars. And it is hard, because, the other side of this market today, especially, is horsepower is so easy to come by. And everybody that wants you to work on their car, they want to make 1,000 or 1,500 horse. They want you to warranty the job. They want a warranty on the parts forever. They want, so it becomes a very hard thing to balance, because, here's a job that, yes, you're making X amount of dollars on the parts you're selling and on the labor, but the expectations of people, of some people that come in and they want their GM warranty with the car that leaves making 1,000 horse to the tire. And so there's becomes a very hard, very difficult balance, for sure. Yeah. So
the internet has not helped with that at all.
Oh, no, internet has not helped. And that was, that's the other side of things for us is as the internet has just grown over the years, and just reliance on it and social media, there's so many more people that are trying to do installations, and they're doing it for pennies on the dollar. And, I call it the bunny slipper theory. You've got X amount of people that run the business out of their home. So you have to compete with these people that essentially have very little to no overhead, and they're willing to do an installation for, a steak dinner, essentially, is what you feel like, but, by the time stuff is paid for. So, so it was a good time for us to get out of that side, because it's a very hard thing, unless you just really explode that side and you're really trying to push it. It's a very hard thing for me to see as being really, really profitable. There's only so many install bays you can have. There's so many install techs you can have, but there's no limit to the amount of parts I can sell.
Right. That's true.
So that's always what we looked at is the part side was always what we really concentrated on over the years.
Okay. So how has location played a role in your success? I mean, being in West Texas is not exactly like the most populous area, right?
No, it's not. For us, it's always been it really has not mattered where we're at as long as a UPS or FedEx truck gets it to us.
Right.
The day we started, we were going to be internet based. We put a website up in May of 2003, and sales doubled in a month. And we went, holy smoke, we better get ready. So it's for us, location has not played a part as far as customers finding us and accessibility of buying parts, that sort of stuff. Now it has as far as the hiring side of things. We did move our company from Lubbock to Georgetown, just north of Austin, in July of 2014. And what really prompted that move is workforce. In West Texas, it's as you continue to grow, and especially when you're looking for specialized people, specifically salesmen, because all of our salesmen are also tech guys. They have to know the parts. They have to be able to diagnose problems. And so it's not just a, hey, I want X part number and move on. So many of the customers call going, hey, I've got this problem, or hey, what cam do you recommend? They have to be able to spec these parts and diagnose problems and all of that. So it's a very hard job to fill. And so when you're in West Texas, and we had this, and I love Lubbock as a town, but as a location, it was very hard for us. And so we would have customers or possible employees come in, for an interview, and they would, especially if they were coming from across the state or the country, they would step off the plane, and so many times they would say that either themselves or their wives would not move there. And because, West Texas, it's super flat, it's farmland, it's dusty. There's you get blowing dirt,
windy and sand,
a lot. Absolutely, windy and sand. So, so for us, when in 2014, we just got to a point and said, if we're really going to make this push to really try and grow the business, we've got to be somewhere that we have a much larger pool of candidates to pull from. So we ended up, in Georgetown, and has been a huge benefit for us because, when we moved here, we had 20 employees at the time. 2 of them did not move with us. So we moved to Georgetown with 18 of those 20.
Okay.
And today we have 45 employees and trying to hire another 5. So it's been a huge thing for us just because there are so many more people in this area to be able to consider for a job, and no one ever shows up in the Austin area and goes, oh, I refuse to live here. It's a beautiful part of the state. Lots of logistically, it was a hard move, because we had multiple CNC machines,
expensive,
and just for sure. Yeah. I mean, it was an expensive move, no doubt. And, just logistically, and trying to time it all, and employees that had houses that needed to be sold, and trying to find a place to live. So it was definitely came with its hurdles, but it was one of those that we knew it was going to be a big struggle in the midst of it, but we knew that there would be a big benefit, once we made it through, and we've definitely seen that. So
awesome.
So location wise for us, customers, they don't care.
Right. They're ordering on your webpage primarily.
Yeah, it's website and phones. I mean, the majority of our sales are over the phone, because a lot of times, especially when you're looking at some of the more in-depth parts of camshaft cylinder heads, stroker engines, that sort of stuff, people want to talk to somebody before they actually place that order. So,
gotcha.
So we've got 11 sales guys now. So when you call in, you get a sales guy that can talk the parts and make the recommendations and get you what you need. But website, absolutely. I mean, there's still lots and lots of orders that flow through it for sure.
Okay. Have you ever doubted yourself and wondered if this isn't going to work, and how do you overcome that feeling and move forward?
Oh man, if I had $1 for every time I thought about how I could have just had a 9-to-5 job. Truly, it's early on, it's like any struggle. When you're in the midst of the struggle, you go, I had so many other options. There's so many other things I can do. How do I get through this? And it's almost like you get tunnel vision because you get so wrapped up in the struggle that you're dealing with at that point that you have to remind yourself, and you have to stop, take a deep breath, and remember and look at the bigger picture of we didn't start this place because we wanted to always fight to try and make it work and fight to try to make it where it can tread water and that it can pay the bills and you strive for more. And so that it's the vision of where do I want to be? I didn't want to just be, hey, I want to be a business where we have 4 employees and I have to wear every single hat and take every single call and always be so divided. And it was like that for many years. But there was still that vision and that goal of still getting to a point of going, okay, well, one day, I want to be big enough where I can have a general manager that, we actually were able to finally hire back in 2012. And, that was almost a pipe dream for me for a lot of years because, the first 9 years of the business, I was sales manager, I was general manager. I wore every hat with that. So yes, absolutely. The struggle was very hard, but you've got to stay focused. You have to remember why you started it and realize that, are you starting it just to get a paycheck and go, well, I'd rather determine my own paycheck, or did you start it for bigger goals? And for us, we started it for bigger things. With that said, I neither of us expected it to become what it has and for us to be able to be into manufacturing to the extent that we are now. But, that's the other very cool side of business is there are times that opportunity will fall in your lap. And sometimes it's not always a pleasant experience with opportunity. A lot of times it's you have to go through some pains of, a manufacturer's part that they manufacture for you fails. Right. And you've got, lots in the market that you take that black eye and you've got to try and make it right and move on before you see other opportunities that come into play. So, that's the other side of it is anybody that is starting a business, you have to know, you're going to have to get thick skin very early on because sure, it's going to present struggles every day. It's going to be unique every day. You've got to be able to multitask. You've got to be able to get creative in your solutions. Think outside the box a lot because there's just lots of, any business owner knows there's lots of different headaches that can come with it. But again, it's big picture. You gotta remember why you started it and just keep a vision of where you really want to go with it.
And you kind of touched on something, just saying that you hired a general manager. And so one thing that a lot of businesses, in this industry never are able to achieve is to be able to operate without, the owner or yourself being present all the time. And did hiring a general manager kind of like give you the ability to, actually take a vacation and not have the whole thing collapse? Is that like kind of the stepping stone for you to be able to kind of step back a little bit if you needed to?
Absolutely. It is so hard. It's so hard to let go of control, and it is so hard to try and justify hiring someone that you don't see as a direct revenue generator. Mm-hmm. And whether it be like a CFO or a general manager, or even as departments grow, and even though you have a general manager, now you have to have managers within each department.
Yeah, and they're going to demand a lot of money too, so they're not cheap people.
Absolutely, and what I can tell you for a fact, it's not until you go through that and you hire that first person like that, it's got to be the right person, obviously, but once you go through that and you really see the true benefit and efficiency, how much more that can change, how much more that can come up of taking some of that pressure and some of that strain off of your back is huge. The first position I ever really hired for that was not directly related to selling parts or installing them or shipping them was a CFO. Okay. I had a great opportunity for a friend that I had met in college, and he was actually a certified financial planner. And so I had actually moved to Dallas. He and I moved to Dallas at the same time, and we were roommates through college, and very close friend. And so he was looking for a change. And so, long story short, but in 2007, we brought him in to handle everything financially. because I was so divided. I couldn't do it. I was not good at it. That's not, my forte. That's not what I was here to do. And, so it lacked a lot. And I always joke that I was surprised that he didn't quit the first week, because it just wasn't, or he's very meticulous and very organized, and which, absolutely you want in someone that's going to be handling your money and financially. So it was a hard thing to do. And I took a little flack for it, just because it's hard to accept that you're going to hire somebody that is not going to sell something for you. But it's just amazing, when you have someone and they're reconciling everything every month, and you start watching some of these things where you're double billed, or you're getting billed incorrectly, or just umpteen different examples where they save you money and they help you out just infinitely. And general management is one of those things, I think, that most business owners look at and go, man, I'd like to be at a point where I can have a manager, to deal with some of this. And absolutely, it's a hard thing. You have to truly be ready for it. And for me, I wanted to do it for a lot of those years, because my business partner and I are both, we wanted to have our hand in all of it, because, your business is your baby. So to speak, it's what you've started. And when it begins to work, especially, you're very protective of it, and you want to make sure that things are being done right. But it takes a long time to realize that when the business gets to a certain point, especially, and you're trying to do so much of it, you're not good at any of it anymore, because you're so divided in trying to do it that, I'm doing a little bit of sales and I'm doing a little bit of management, and you can't do it. There's just not enough time in the day to get it all done. And so when you start looking and you do get to a point and you bring a general manager in that allows you to work on the bigger picture items, being able to truly work on product development and work on growing the business, and where do we want to be in another year, 3 years, 5 years, working on trying to get more dealers for your products, just so many things that when you are having to be the manager, you flat out don't have time to work on.
Yeah, you're a jack of all trades and master of none, so nothing gets done correctly, right?
Absolutely correct. That is absolutely correct. And so it's a very hard thing to juggle, because it's always money. Obviously, especially when you're looking at management, it's going to take the right person. You need someone that does have that skill set. Management and sales, both. I think yes, it can be taught, but I think it's more of a personality. You're looking for the right personality that can thrive in that type of environment. And it can be hard to find. But our general manager we have now, he's again, he was actually a friend that both my business partner and I have known for quite a while. But he's done lots with management. And so it was a natural fit, because he's also a car guy. So he knows the LS and Gen 5 LT parts. So when he has a customer on the phone that is saying, okay, well, I'm having a problem with this part and here's what's going on, he actually can walk them through it, figure out what's going on. But at the same time, he's got the skill set and the knowledge base to be able to handle the situation. And, where he has the business's best interests at heart, because I think that's the biggest fear of any business owner, is giving over control to someone else and them just running with your business and giving away money left and right, or giving away parts left and right. And so you have to reach a point where you have to trust your management, and you have to empower them and let them do their job. You can't step on their toes. So if, whether you like something that they're doing or you don't, that's something you have to deal with them directly, and you can't go around them and make sure that you empower them to be able to lead the employees that you've hired them to lead. So, but it takes a very long time to get to that point. We were in business for 10 years before I ever got to a point of having a general manager.
Very cool.
So for those people out there, that are, 2, 3, 4 years in business going, I'm never going to get to that point. It will come. It's just, you have to do your time. That's just kind of part of it. You've got to fight through the growing pains and and fight through some of the bad stuff before you get to a point and get big enough and where you can justify, some of those bigger jobs like that and be able to afford it.
So what is the worst experience you've had in business?
I think it's I think overall for us, it's the shysters of the world. You've always got people that are trying to take advantage. Being internet based, we accept a lot of credit card payments.
Yeah.
And so there's always people ready to, that try and some that probably do it successfully, make a living off of ripping other people off. And so that you have to, you learn early on. It was 2005. We were selling engines, and I had an engine, $6,000 engine, that it was a fraudulent transaction, and we lost because it was fraud. We lost, and we didn't do all of the specific things that credit card companies and merchant companies want you to do as far as trying to provide that added layer of protection. And so that was a very, being at the time nearly, oh my gosh, very expensive. And nearly 3 years into our business, we were still in the grand scheme, still in our infancy. And, a $6,000 engine was that was a huge hit. And any business owner out there that's ever had to deal with a fraudulent transaction knows when that transaction is initiated, the money is removed from your account, and then you basically have to prove that you did everything you were supposed to do. And from that point, it's up to the merchant or the merchant company to decide if you get your money back or not.
Yeah.
So, so it was an eye-opening experience. After that one and we lost it, I basically called our credit card processing company and said, I need a manager on the phone, and I want to talk to somebody that can tell me everything I'm supposed to be doing to protect ourselves as much as possible, so this doesn't happen again. Because again, at that point in our business, and just any business, you have to limit your exposure, and that was a huge hit for us. So, that's the downside, and probably the worst experience is really just realizing that not everybody has your best interests in mind.
Yep.
You have to be on guard, and go out of your way to make sure you're protecting yourself.
Yeah, and that's your story here is all too common. Even nowadays, I feel like it's even getting more common because it seems to be so easy to just order something online and then call your credit card company and say, you know what, I didn't really order that, even though I signed for it and everything. And like in our discussions in our Do It for Living community on Facebook, I mean, it's just about every week somebody gets screwed by somebody, and it's very sad that that's what it's come to. But
yeah, it is, and that's for us, we still get occasionally chewed out by customers because we won't ship to an address that is not listed with their credit card company. Mm-hmm. And yes, there's other companies that are willing to do it. We are not, because that's the number one
no for the credit card companies.
And if you have shipped to an address that's not verified, you lose. Game over. That's it. And so we still don't, no matter what, and the good side is there's multiple payment options. So if they don't have a credit card and they don't or they don't want to deal with having to add an address to their credit card, you can, it's a little bit easier to deal with PayPal. People can go through PayPal. Mm-hmm. With that, usually is a little bit easier to add an address with, but it is. It's as e-commerce, it just continues to grow into this huge monster that it is. There's always people out there trying to take advantage of that. So yeah, absolutely, you've got to take the added precautions to protect yourself in the midst of that, especially in taking credit card payments.
So what's something you guys are doing right now that has you fired up?
Overall, I would say product development. And moving forward, it's we continue to take more and more in-house as far as manufacturing goes. I love that aspect, just because that's something that is specific to Texas Speed and what we do. We now manufacture all of our engines As far as the machining and assembly is all in-house.
Okay.
All of our cylinder head porting and assembly is all done in-house, and then all of our camshaft grinding is done in-house.
Okay.
So these are Texas Speed specific things that as we continue to grow, we still try and add to that specific product that we can offer, that is not just, hey, I can buy XYZ exhaust system from anybody through the country. A lot of our customers come to us specifically for our parts. So we've got our own line of exhaust products now. We've added in with crankshafts and connecting rods. We've actually just recently in the last 6 months released a new rocker arm for the LS. And that's really the stuff that gets me fired up, is continuing to push forward with growing the company, but specifically with our specific parts.
Okay.
Because everything that we take in house, it's always, anytime we've ever taken stuff in, it's usually because we have ended up with bad dealings of selling someone else's part, or run into issues trying to buy a part from somebody else, and we go, well, if we can do this better, we need to do it ourselves. And so
Yeah.
we so that it has snowballed, and that's the side of the business that primarily Jason, my business partner, deals with, is the machining side. So he's he's the programmer, he's the guy that has to occasionally deal with fixing them. And then we've got multiple support guys around that help him, but he has his plate full for sure. Now we have there's 18 CNC different machining centers that we have in our building now. So he runs nonstop. But that's the stuff he loves. But I love growing. I love growing the business that is specific to Texas Speed and those related parts. It's very cool to always think back and look back to where we started and how far we've come. So I'm always fired up to just keep pushing forward.
Cool. So let's take a pause here, and then we can get back to more about the actual business and what you've all got there. We all know owning a shop is difficult, so we created My Shop Assist to help you manage the various jobs. Whether you run a machine shop, a performance tuning shop, build off-road trucks, or even do powder coating, My Shop Assist can help you. It is completely online and will help you schedule the jobs, log time on each task, track parts orders, and take pictures of the work. You can even export your jobs from My Shop Assist into QuickBooks as invoices. So if you're interested to improve operations at your shop, check out myshopassist.com to start your 30-day free trial. So Trevor, go ahead and tell us more about Texas Speed. I mean, how big is the facility you're in now?
The facility we're in now is just under 40,000 square feet. We've been in this building for 2 years.
Did you buy it or are you renting it?
We are renting.
Okay.
We actually own land, but we went ahead and leased because the city of Georgetown was not very cooperative, and the fire marshals and all of those guys. We had many hurdles that they kept throwing in front of us in trying to build a building. So we said, you know what, we're going to wait for a little bit. So we went ahead and did a 5-year lease on the facility that we're in now. So
Okay.
I think, though, and looking back, it really kind of works for us because we've grown so much since we've been in this facility that it allows us to essentially grow into something else without having to build another building
Right.
again.
Right.
So I think it's been to our advantage for sure. But it's not always, and the other side of that is owning is not always the best case. Just in, your market and how real estate is, sometimes like here is case in point, the real estate is just so crazy that, you hate to build while there's this huge boom and you end up with a building that costs you a lot more. Because real estate is booming, and so there's some advantages to leasing. You get to deduct that lease payment that you wouldn't normally have on just making a mortgage. So there's some advantages to leasing. But
Okay.
we're leasing the facility that we're currently in.
Okay, and you have a management team in place. So have you guys ever written a formal business plan? And are you guys on target with it at all? if so?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because that's something we're actually starting to work on, and really starting to have more concrete things in place as far as here's 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, and these are our targets. Prior to this point, we have not really done formal written business plans. My business partner and I, we fly by the seat of our pants. And Jason is very much an idea guy, and so it's one of those where we kind of brainstorm and we run with it.
Okay.
But our business has grown so much over the last 3 years specifically that we've now gotten to that point where we're big enough. We really need to have those formal business plans in place. So that's actually something we're starting to work on.
Okay. And you said you had 45 employees. Did you find it difficult managing all them and keeping them on task? Or is that what you've got a management team in place. Is that kind of really made that much easier?
Absolutely. It's made it much easier. The management of people is not always easy. It's never easy. And as you grow and you get more people, it just becomes a bigger job. But for sure, absolutely, it's with employees, each person presents unique hurdles. So it's you just have to learn to adapt, and you have to get good with reading people, and realize that sometimes it's a numbers game. But typically, as far as keeping them on task, we rarely have that problem. So many of the people we have here are passionate about our industry, and a lot of them are car guys, and so it's not even just LS specific. You can look across the parking lot and you see a big mix of even some import stuff. But long story short, guys, so many of our employees are very passionate about what they do, and they take a lot of pride in what they do. So as far as keeping them on task, we really don't have that problem.
Okay. And we talked about when you were early on working 16, 18 hours a day. Have you been able to dial that back for yourself?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If I didn't, I wouldn't be here talking to you. Truly, it's now it's pretty normal work weeks. 40-hour work weeks.
Okay.
So yeah, over time. So for the guys and the girls that are out there working the 16, 18-hour days right now, it won't be like that forever. So there is light at the end of the tunnel.
And do you have a family?
I'm still single.
Okay.
Believe it or not, I've been married to this business, so so I haven't gotten to the point of really trying to pursue any of that.
Okay, so only having to work 40 hours a week, you're able to actually have hobbies and actually go do your own race car and go to the racetrack and do fun stuff, not just work all the time, right?
Absolutely, yeah. You can after the first probably 2 years of the business, for a while, we didn't really like cars as a hobby because we did it so much.
Mm-hmm.
And, so it became the occupational hazard. And so it's one of those that over time, as we're able to scale that back and we come back into a little more normal work hours, we enjoy cars again.
Yep.
As far as playing with them on the weekends, and and that's the great thing about this area is there's so much to do car related. So it's still a good hobby. You'll find us playing with cars on most days. When we're not here still. So
okay.
So yeah, it's a good balance now.
Okay, and I imagine you're to the point where the pay does justify the time spent.
For sure. Yeah, it's absolutely. Yeah, now it's well worth it. But again, I'd say it all the time. It's easy to look at a place that becomes successful and want to say, man, I would love to own that place. I would love to have a stake in that. But no one ever says that when you start. No
Right.
one ever says, man, I would love to have part of that ridiculous risk that I think you're taking right now.
So after 15 years of working, or even 10 years of working, your 18-hour days, averaged over the life of the business, you're still only like $15 an hour, right?
Yeah, give or take. But the good side is that that's going up. So it's getting better with time.
Cool. So what are the primary tools you use to manage your shop? And in this can be like, you got a shop manager. What kind of software are you guys using? Like, accounting system, QuickBooks, what are you guys using?
Right now, we actually have two different systems. We use Fishbowl, which
Hmm.
does the inventory side of things,
Okay.
and we still use QuickBooks as the accounting side, but we're getting ready to replace all of it with a ERP system.
Enterprise solution.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's we're past the point of really needing one, just in the management of all of it. So QuickBooks, very early when we started, yeah, QuickBooks was it. And then as we grew, we needed something that can really better manage inventory. So that's when we actually started with Fishbowl in end of 2011.
Okay.
But outgrown that. So now it needs to be an ERP system. But beyond that, as far as managing the shop, it's the right people in place.
Okay.
Absolutely, the managers we have in place.
Okay. And for people who are not familiar with ERP, it's not cheap software because it's usually customized
Oh, Lord, no.
and
Yeah.
it's quite pricey. So
It's it hurts when you get that first quote. You have no idea that you're spending six figures on software. It's a huge endeavor, but there's so many benefits, and again, it's one of those you have to get to the point where you need it and can justify that dollar.
Mhm.
But the benefit of it, especially in moving forward and continuing to grow the business, it's well worth it.
Yep, and we're we sell the My Shop Assist software, and it's a struggle to even convince people that $100 a month is something, but like the value of it is there when you see the system in operation, and I'm sure that's the same with the ERP system. Is once you get it going, you're like, wow, like here's how you can truly run the business with 50 people in place and see what everything is going on, all the machines, what they're doing, what needs to happen there.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah. It's just, we have lots of QC processes in place for our manufacturing, but the ERP system will allow us to track a lot more of that very specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And it just gives you so many more opportunities that you can't get from traditional softwares. So it's a very hard thing to find something that can wrap everything, both inventory control and accounting, into one software. But the ERP systems out there, lots of options. None of them are cheap, but there's a lot of them that are really good fit specific for the automotive industry. Yeah. So, it is one of those that definitely will pay for itself.
Cool. And so last part of this, last question of this section here. So what's something you guys are doing that, makes yourself successful that other people may not have thought about?
I think for us, we're very unique because we are a retailer and a manufacturer. Most of the time it's one or the other. So, for us, so many times over the years, we just decided to become the manufacturer. And so I think that's been something that is very unique to Texas Speed is that, when we had issues with a specific part and we say, okay, well, we're not going to find another manufacturer for that part. Well, forget it. We're just going to buy the machines and we're going to become the manufacturer.
Awesome.
So that's really been, I would say, the most unique part of our business.
Okay, so let's take another break here and then we'll get back to the last of this interview.
We are hosting our next Essentials of Operating a Shop seminar during the PRI show in Indianapolis, Indiana on December 6th. We developed this one-day seminar to help shop owners rethink how they run their business. We cover topics like employee management, best practices for accounting, improving customer service, and many more. It doesn't matter whether you've been in business for 20 years or haven't even opened yet, you will get useful information and helpful business practices to improve the operations at your shop and be more profitable. You can find out more information about the seminar and sign up by going to the Events tab on the Do It For A Living Facebook page or by visiting the website at doitforalivingpodcast.com.
Okay, so Trevor, what's something you personally struggle with in business and how do you deal with it?
I think something that I struggled with early on and still do to some extent is realizing that not everybody is going to be excited that you own a business and have started a business. That competition is a great thing for customers. They end up with a better price, a better part, and more options. But there are people within the industry, whatever it may be, that that won't be as excited that you've started. And so I think that was probably the hardest part for me to really accept and realize is there are haters within your industry. There are people that are going to go out of your way to try and make it more difficult for you to succeed. There are going to be people that will try and take shots every chance they get.
Mm-hmm.
The old saying, haters going to hate, and that's absolutely true. But that was a much bigger struggle for me early on. Now I look at it and I just go, I can't fix them. I can't fix their mindset and their approach, but I can certainly fix mine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't concentrate on that. I just look at it as I need to do what's best for our business, and trying to continue to grow and do best for our customers and treat them right. And, I always believe that the chips will fall where they may. So, but it's an eye-opening experience to realize that not everyone's going to be excited that you're doing this.
Right. So what's your 1-year plan for the business and for yourself?
1-year plan, I would say, is, we continue to grow every year, with pretty significant growth considering we're on our 15th year. But, for the next year, it's efficiency, and organization as we continue to move forward, getting more key people in place, more management in place, the better software in place, and really trying to set it up for the longer term growth. So as our business does continue to grow, that it's got that right platform to continue to build on. So when sales are double, what they are now, we still have the right foundation in place for it to grow.
Okay. And do you have a 5-year plan?
Well, we're working on the formal one. For 5-year, I guess formally, no, not yet.
Okay.
Because there's so many things that I look at, of what I want to do, where we want to go with the business, but also, in considering overall where the automotive industry is going and
Yeah.
additional hurdles that may be presented over the next 5 years.
Yeah, it's definitely the EPA thing is throwing a big wrench in a lot of that stuff too, right?
For sure, no doubt about it. And so it's something that everybody in this industry needs to keep their eye on and be looking on the horizon, because yeah, absolutely, things can change at any point in time where they tell you that you can't sell a specific part, you can't manufacture a part, whatever that may be. So it's most definitely in looking to, for us, is making sure there's some diversity amongst what we do sell. So as that does happen, that it's not as big of a hit,
Mm-hmm.
and really trying to grow the stuff that they're not going to mess with. So yeah, 5 years will be it will be an interesting 5 years just for the automotive industry in general.
Yeah. Okay. So can you give our listeners an action item that they can, take and, apply to their business, something that they can do to improve their situation?
My best advice to any business owner is stay focused on what you are doing. It was very hard. It was very hard for me to do that early on, because it's incredibly easy to get wrapped up in, some stuff that doesn't matter. It's easy to get wrapped up in the people that will try to take shots at you. Stay focused on your business and keep your goals in front of you, and keep, just push forward with the things that that are going to grow your business. Don't get sidetracked into people that are going to sling mud at you, and don't get sidetracked in small stuff that in the grand scheme of things may not matter.
Okay.
Whether it be dealing with a problematic customer, a problematic employee, it's a problem for that day, but it's probably not a problem the next day or the next week.
Yeah, a lot of people struggle with that. Myself, I struggle with it too, but I've been doing this for, 11, 12 years now, and I've learned to shrug that off as well. It's hard, but it's definitely something to do.
Yeah, it's very hard, and it takes practice for sure. I mean, you have to consciously, make an effort to do it, because as your business continues to grow, and as you become more relevant in your market, you you become the guy that people do like to take shots at occasionally. So you have to learn. You just have to learn how to properly shrug it off and just concentrate on what has worked for your business. Concentrate on growing it. Concentrate on doing the great things that help you become a better owner, a better employer. You know, the small stuff that it just doesn't matter, and it's so easy to get entangled in. So just try and stay focused. I know it's so ridiculously hard, but try and push off all of the stuff, you know, that as people take the shots.
Okay, so let's move on to our quick answer questions here. Tell us a game-changing product you've seen in the last year.
You know, game-changing. I don't know that it's a game changer because they've been around for a long time. But you know, you see a lot more coming into play, at least in our market, specifically with turbo kits and turbo systems, and everyone making 1,000 horse with stock bottom end motors and that kind of stuff. You know, so I think for our market, I think even though it's not a game changing part specifically because turbos have been around a long time, but it has been a game changer in our market for sure. You know, we have guys that now take 5.3 liter truck motors and make 1,000+ horse on them. With stock bottom ends doing nothing more than opening up ring gaps and you know, I mean, just doing just incredibly crazy stuff. And so turbos have been a very big change in our market because, you know, 6, 7 years ago, making 1,000 horse was a huge deal. It's not today. You're a chump if you make 1,000 horse. Everyone wants to make 1,500, 1,600, and it's very easy to do. So, you know, turbos have been a very big part of our market in the last year or 2 years, and dealing a lot more with that now. You know, even selling precision turbo stuff directly now. So
yeah, and you definitely don't hear like people bragging about 600 horsepower NA engines anymore.
No, absolutely not. And no one ever calls. 1 out of 20 will want to build just a naturally aspirated setup. Everybody else wants to make 1,000, 1,500, 1,700. You know, I mean, everyone's shooting for the moon. So, no one builds a motor and tries to make less or even the same of what they're making. They want 1,000+, and it's easy to get.
Okay, and you touched on this a little bit, but what software program are you guys using daily?
Daily, it's Fishbowl.
Okay.
We're using Fishbowl inventory software right now, but we'll be changing pretty soon.
Okay, and what's a favorite app that you use on your phone?
Honestly, eBay. I'm kind of an eBay junkie. Mainly for cars. I love looking at what comes through for sale.
Okay.
You know, it's kind of a side hobby. I love kind of watching that, even especially the old stuff.
Okay.
The classic cars and retrofit stuff. So yeah, if I'm on my phone checking out an app, it's usually I'm cruising eBay for deals.
Very cool. And what about like your favorite shop tool?
For actual
this could be anything. I mean, obviously you have CNC machines, which are pretty cool. Tuners like dynos, welders like welders. You know, it's kind of the norm.
Yeah, for sure. I think my favorite shop tool would be our CMM machine, a coordinate measuring machine. It is, long story short, it's basically a machine. It will
like a
measure
arm?
any part essentially. It's, we set it up. So for instance, we do a run before we do a run of cylinder heads, we machine one cylinder head, we put it on the CMM, and we give it the blueprint that it's supposed to be looking at. And so it measures everything on the cylinder head, and it tells you down to the 1/10 of a 1,000th of an inch.
Okay.
Where everything is, locations of ports, locations of seats, locations of valve guide, everything, absolutely everything. So, that's probably my favorite because it, one, tells you exactly what your problems are, saves you ridiculous money. If there was an issue on that very first head you machined, you didn't just machine 64 heads and then go, holy crap, I've
They're
got
all
a problem.
junk, right?
Right, exactly. So, the CMM, that's probably my favorite just because it allows you to always know what you have on any part that you're producing, but at the same time, it allows you to see how accurate you really are. And I always say it can either be your favorite machine or your least favorite because depending on how far your numbers are off when you go to measure something. But for us, we love it because, that we use it as part of our regular QC process.
Now,
everything that we manufacture.
Is that one on a 5-axis? Is that what you're doing it on?
No, it's actually, it's its own separate setup with a probe and all.
Okay.
It basically just uses a probe and it will hit it from every different angle you want it to hit it.
Okay.
It's done separate of any of the CNCs.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen different variations of how they do it. One of them's done on a CNC where you tell it where to touch and then it measures it. And I've seen, the Faro arms where you're moving an arm and touching it. And there's a bunch of different variations of measuring stuff, huh?
Right. Yeah. This one is a Zeiss. It uses a probe, and we do have, like, for our engines, we probe all the blocks where it will actually, tell you where everything's at,
okay.
and then you machine accordingly. And so there's a few different ones, but the CMM specific is the one that it will tell you, just
everything,
ridiculous numbers, where it's all at. It's a very cool machine. It's kind of boring to watch. It does, not as cool to watch as a CNC by any means, because CNC, it's throwing coolant and throwing aluminum chips, and it's lots of movement. CMM, it just it's just a probe, just a probe moving. But for whatever reason, I love it.
Okay, and my favorite question: what kind of car are you daily driving?
Primarily, it's this is going to be a little bit ironic considering our line of business, but it's a 2016 Hellcat Charger.
Oh, okay.
Even though we're GM based, all we do is GM LS and G5 LT. But I'm a car guy. I love everything fast, and this car made 640 horse to the tires, bone stock. Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. So,
do you have a race? Do you have a race car too, or is it just a street car?
It's just street. Occasionally we'll go to the drag strip and play. We've got some shop cars. We're actually finishing up. We've got a 2010 Camaro that we just finished up. It's a twin turbo setup with a 427 that we actually just got running, and actually put a video up, I believe yesterday, of doing its first burnout. So that one should be hitting tracks here pretty soon.
Very cool. And to kind of close this thing out here, what do you think the future of automotive performance is going to be?
I think automotive performance only continues to grow. It's especially as you watch the manufacturers, they're under pressure. You're going to look at a lot of self-driving vehicles over the next 5 to 10 years. You're going to be looking at more electric vehicles, but you can't tell a car guy that he can't mod, and you can't tell a car guy that he can't have a Lopi idle. That we're still going to have the bug. Mm-hmm. And so I think as the manufacturers push more away from that, you're still going to see these platforms that are traditional internal combustion engines. People are still going to mod them. So I think from the aftermarket performance standpoint, I think it's alive and well, and will just continue to grow. I
think a lot of people echo your sentiment. It's definitely electric, autonomous, all that stuff's coming. It's going to happen, but yeah, you can't kill the fire in these people's hearts, right?
No way. And at no point in time will you ever show up at a car gathering that has a bunch of electric cars show up. Half of the fun is listening to them come in. Right. So, from the standpoint, regardless of what the OEs are having to do, automotive performance is alive and well.
Okay. And how do we connect with you and your company?
You can find us on the web, texas-speed.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, all of those, YouTube. We're on all the different social media outlets. As you can always pick up a phone and give us a call as well.
And so, Trevor, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk with us.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate you having me on the show.
Thanks for listening to Do It for a Living. You can find out more about this guest, this show, and even details about what we just talked about at our website. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/doitforaliving and tell us who you want to hear from. And most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Click subscribe. Do it now. Seriously. I'll wait while you grab your phone. Open up the podcast app, tap the subscribe button, When you subscribe, you help us gain momentum and attract more high-level guests.